Now in part 1, we've installed and prepped our Ubuntu VMs. So now in part 2, we're going to move on to installing Splunk. This is the same event logging platform that is used by professional security operations center teams. We're going to install Splunk Enterprise on our Ubuntu-Splunk host, and then we're going to install a Splunk forwarder on our Ubuntu-target host. Now, Splunk has a reputation for being a little intimidating, but don't worry, we're going to walk you through it step by step. We're going to take it slow, and if you are sophisticated enough to copy and paste commands, you're going to be able to follow along quite easily. I'm going to show you how I downloaded and installed Splunk when I managed a full enterprise level stack. I'm also going to show you some very necessary Splunk tuning that you'll need to perform to keep your lab running smoothly. Then finally, we'll go over testing our connections to make sure that our Ubuntu VMs can talk to each other over the network. You should not move on to part 3 until your Splunk server is tuned and the connections are tested. This will possibly save you a lot of grief later on. So let's get started. First thing we're going to do, we're going to go to splunk.com. I hate clicking the sponsor result. It's just a pet peeve of mine. Log in or sign up. If you already have an account, you can just log in, but we need to sign up. Let me walk you through that. Business email, I'm just going to put my personal. We'll see if it accepts that. Here they want a special password. First name, John. I'm just going to put something in here. Cyber dude. And phone number required. I'll just put something in there. Company. Let's go Acme. Postal codes required. We're going to try it. Yep, they're going to. Let's just pick a 98. Let's go 9N430. Cool. Invalid. Dang it. 98430. Okay, I don't know why it's just sitting there thinking. We'll click agree, and we'll hit create account. Yes. I'm a human. I promise. For now. Verification email. Okay, I'm going to cut this part out because you guys don't need to see this. We just need to get this video on the road. I verified my email. I logged in. And we're going to go to Trials and Downloads. And we'll scroll to the bottom here. First, we're going to download Splunk Enterprise on our Ubuntu Splunk server. So we'll click Splunk Enterprise. We'll select Linux. Now we're going to use the wget option to download Splunk. This is what the pros often perform installation with because it's faster and perfect for servers that don't even have a browser with them. So instead of downloading Splunk and moving the file around before setup, wget just lets you download anything straight from the command line and into the folder you want to with one clean command. Now, if you're on Ubuntu or any Debian flavored Linux, you're going to select the .deb option. If you're on Red Hat or CentOS, you're going to want to grab the RPM. So we'll click copy wget link, and we'll click here. Clicking here should put this whole thing on our clipboard, where I'm going to spin up my Ubuntu Splunk server. So quick heads up, Splunk Enterprise gives you a full 60-day trial with all features unlocked, but after the trial ends, it automatically converts to the Splunk free license, which you can use forever. But it has limits like max 500 megabytes of ingestion per day and no alerting. So in this series, we will cover how to set up alerting with Splunk initially, but because the free license doesn't allow you to utilize alerting, I'll show you other methods of setting up alerts later. Now we'll just log in. Let's make this full screen. hit the Windows key, type the word terminal, hit enter, and then we're going to maximize our bash window. Let me increase the size here so you guys can see it. Now we have the wget command. Well, we had the wget command copied, so we're going to copy it again, and then we're going to hit right click and hit paste, and that puts it all there. Splunk's going to download. If this takes too long, I am going to cut it out of the video and skip you right ahead to the next step, because you don't want to sit here for 5 minutes. That's just boring. Okay, it finished. Now, something I got to share with you really quick. Now we're going to use the dpackage or dpkg command to install Splunk for us. Dpackage is the tool that Debian/Ubuntu uses to install .deb packages. Dpackage is a low-level package manager. It unpacks the software, puts all the files in the right places, and registers it with the system. It's like a little Linux installation butler that keeps everything nice and tidy and organized for us. Now we're going to use dpackage to install, so we'll go sudo dpackage tac I Splunk, and then we'll do a little cheat here. We'll put a little star in .deb. So this little I option here, that stands for install, since it will install only the file you give it. This means that if other pieces of software are needed, called dependencies, which is just supporting software that Splunk relies on, dpackage won't actually go and find them. You have to fix that afterward. So we'll hit enter here. We'll enter our password. And then if this takes too long, I will skip ahead in the video. All right, it's done installing. I turned the heat off too, so hopefully it wasn't too distracting. Now we'll ensure Splunk permissions are straightened out before we start Splunk for the first time. So watch closely what I do. I will clear my screen here so you can see better. We'll go sudo change owner. We'll do this recursively. We'll give ownership to the Splunk user in the Splunk group, and then we'll do this for the opt Splunk folder. There, now we ensured all the permissions are correct, just to be safe. Now I'll start the Splunk daemon. The daemon is just a background service that runs Splunk behind the scenes. We can tell it to start automatically, and it will stay running. And it will quietly do all the work of indexing data and powering the Splunk web interface. We are going to use one command to start the Splunk daemon for the first time, and this command will also tell Splunk to automatically start when the computer boots up each time. So watch closely what I type out. Sudo opt Splunk in the binary folder of Splunk, enable boot -start with the user Splunk, and we're going to automatically accept the license agreement, and we're going to automatically answer yes to any questions. So we'll hit this, and it's asking for an admin username. I am just going to type admin for the username. I suggest you use something a little bit more unique. So I'll type admin, and then I'll put in a complex enough password here. We'll clear our screen. Okay, now that that's done, let's go over to our Splunk forwarder. We're going to go back to Splunk. See this where it says Universal Forwarder? We're going to click that. We're going to go to the Linux tab. Then we're going to scroll down to the 64-bit. And then we are again going to pick the .deb. And we're going to go to copy wget link. We'll click here to copy it to our clipboard. Most viewers will select this 64-bit .deb option. If you're using Ubuntu, you're definitely going to use that option. But let me get the Ubuntu target machine spun up, And then I will show you how to confirm. If you're anxious about it at all, I'm going to show you how to confirm that you do need the 64-bit version of the Splunk forwarder. So we'll give it a little bit here to start up, and then I'll show you that. We'll just log in here. Windows key, type terminal, hit enter. We'll increase the size of this so you guys can see it. Now, if you're unsure if you need the 64-bit version, here's what you do. Type uname, well, you got to spell it right, -m, hit enter, and this x86_64 will pop up. That's how you know that you need the 64-bit version. If something else pops up, you'll have to research which version that you're going to need. But if you followed along from the first video and you're using Ubuntu, this is the one that you're going to need. Okay, so let's paste the wget command. Now ensure we have the Splunk forwarder version. We don't want Enterprise Splunk again. That's not what we're going for on this machine. We just need this machine to forward logs using Splunk. We don't need the whole server installed on it. So we'll go ahead and hit enter. This one should install a lot faster, but again, if it drags on, whoa, geez, no need to skip ahead on that one. The forwarder is a very small piece of software, so that's why it installed so much quicker. We'll install the Splunk forwarder on this. We're going to use the D package again. So we'll type sudo D package tac I, because we want to just install the software. Don't go out and gather dependencies for us, which are those supporting pieces of software. And we're going to do a little cheat there by putting a star. And we're going to hit .deb, enter password. Then this shouldn't take too long. Okay, let's straighten out our permissions again before we start the Splunk forwarder for the first time. So we'll go sudo, well, let me clear my screen so you guys can see better. Sudo chown R for recursive again. This time, because we're using a Splunk forwarder, the Splunk username is Splunk FWD for Splunk forward. And the folder we're renaming is Splunk forwarder, or not renaming, but the folder we're changing permissions on. We'll hit enter there. Now again, we'll enable the Splunk forwarder to start at boot time and start the Splunk service for the first time, all with one command again. So we'll go sudo opt Splunk forwarder bin Splunk enable boot start user Splunk FWD, because this is the Splunk forwarder. Yes, automatically accept the license. And automatically answer yes to all prompts. And then we'll use admin, at least I will use admin for the username again. I suggest you use something more unique. I'll enter my password. And then let's see if Splunk is automatically running like it should be. We'll do status Splunk. Oh, that's weird. Let's do this. Oh, I think I know what's going on. There it is. It used uppercase Splunk forwarder. So right now, it is not running. That's okay. We'll hit Q to get out of that. We'll start up Firefox here. Okay, yes, thank you, Firefox. You're great. Thank you very much. And we will do HTTP. Remember, our host name is Ubuntu-Splunk, port 8000 /. Very good, very good. Use the username and password that we set up earlier. Ah, yes. Please leave me alone with these pop-ups. Go away. Okay, here's what I wanted you to see. Splunk D, red. Red is bad, right? Red means something's wrong. Resource usage. System iowait reached red threshold of 3. Okay, now let's talk about this iowait warning and why Splunk makes such a big deal about it. iowait simply means that the CPU is waiting around for disk operations to finish. Splunk is extremely disk heavy, and it's optimized for fast enterprise storage like SSDs and NVMe in data centers. But in a home lab environment, the disks are much slower, so Splunk complains even though nothing is actually broken. This warning shows up because Linux exposes I/O wait times to Splunk directly. Windows systems have disk latency too, but it doesn't expose it to Splunk in the same way, so you won't see these I/O wait warnings if Splunk is installed on a Windows system. Now, these warning thresholds are very conservative, and they're tuned for enterprise environments. So we're just going to adjust them for our lab environment. After that, I'll show you how to reduce some default Splunk activity so it's not so busy right out of the box. To fix this, we're going to go to Settings. We're going to go to Health Report Manager. Now in this field right here where it says Filter, we're going to type iowait, because that's the name of the error we're getting. Then we're going to click Edit. We're going to disable Include in Local Report. Then we're going to scroll down. We're going to double all of these numbers. Now, I'm just showing you how to fix this instead of explaining every single detail, because this video could become many hours long if I went into details. So we are just tuning this for a lab environment instead of an enterprise environment. Because I don't know about you, but when I see errors being thrown on my software, it really gives me an OCD flare-up. So I am going to show you how to get rid of those. So we took all the reds and yellows, we doubled their numbers, and we click Save here, and that'll take care of it. This will turn green again. Yep, right there. Clear our screen. Now comes a very important part. So for your own sake, do not skip this. We are going to tune Splunk so it behaves appropriately in a small home lab environment. See, out of the box, Splunk assumes you have enterprise-grade hardware and large deployments, so huge hard drives in a data center, tons of RAM, etc. Since Splunk is tuned for those environments in a VM lab, it can feel overly noisy and resource hungry because it's performing background work that just simply isn't necessary for a home lab. So let's begin by tuning Splunk's health warnings so they much better match a small home lab. These thresholds, again, are conservatively tuned for large enterprise storage environments, so they'll be overly noisy on our VM-based system. So we'll go sudo su Splunk, because we want to make all changes with the Splunk user. Just an aside, I talked to a Splunk engineer one time, and he mentioned to me that about half of all problems people have with Splunk are due to permissions. So you need to be very careful when you do any sort of tuning to Splunk. Make sure that you are using the Splunk user itself and not a standard user and not root, because that can lead to a lot of issues down the road. So we switched over to the Splunk user to make our adjustments. We are going to VI and make adjustments to this particular config file, which is called limits.conf. Opt Splunk etc system local limits.conf. Open that up, and I am going to paste something in here. What I'm pasting in here, I am also going to paste in the description below, so don't worry, I got you covered. Now, if I took the time to go through every line here in the video, we would be here for about 4 hours. So what I did is I just put in a quick explanation for each of these settings, so that way you can go through and read them yourself and kind of see what they're actually doing. So now that I pasted those there, I'm going to hit escape to make sure I'm out of insert mode. Just to be sure, I'm going to hold down shift and hit ZZ twice to save and exit. Now let's reduce the verbosity of Splunk's internal logs. See, by default, Splunk logs a lot of low-level detail about its own behavior. In a home lab, again, this creates unnecessary noise and a lot of disk activity, so we're going to dial it back. If we ever need to do deeper troubleshooting, we can always turn the log verbosity level back up. So this is a two-way door, as Jeff Bezos would say. vi opt splunk etc system local log dot CFG, and I'm going to paste something else in here. Again, this will be in the description of the video, so you can just copy and paste from there. And again, I'm not going to go over what all of these settings do, so I've put a few explanations in here in the comments, and then you can go through and read those yourself when you have time. Hit escape. Make sure I'm outside of insert mode, hold down shift ZZ to save and exit, and then we'll move on to the next one. So Splunk logs a ton of its own internal telemetry. Again, in a home lab, we don't need long-term retention of this data, so we're going to cap how much disk space Splunk's internal logs are allowed to use. So we'll adjust another config file. This time, it is going to be indexes.conf. Hit enter. We'll copy paste this. Again, here's explanations for you to go through and read later, and hit escape. Hold down shift ZZ to save and exit. And now that we've made all those adjustments, we are going to leave the Splunk user context by typing exit, and then we are going to restart Splunk. Sudo systemctl restart Splunk. Now it restarted, so we're done with our Splunk installation and tuning. The last piece is we need to test our connections from our Ubuntu target host to our Ubuntu Splunk host. So do not skip this. I'm going to show you a fast, easy way to perform this test. If we don't have this connectivity, which is why we're testing it now, then the rest of the lab is for nothing. So this is pretty important. First off, go to your virtual machine settings, player, upper left hand, manage, virtual machine settings. And it may be kind of hard to see, but you want to go to network adapter, and you want to be sure that this NAT radio button is selected. And you want to, this is our Ubuntu Splunk machine. We want to do this on our Ubuntu target machine as well. So we'll go to player, manage, virtual machine settings, go down to the network adapter, and make sure the NAT radio button is selected. Even though I'd love to, I can't go into detail about what NAT is at the moment because that's kind of off topic for this video. Just know that you need that in order for these two machines to talk to each other. Now, if NAT is not selected, then power down your VMs, then open up those settings again, set them to NAT, and power them back up before moving forward. Now, we are on our Ubuntu Splunk machine. Let's clear the screen. We are going to find our IP address. So we'll go IP-A, then we'll pipe that to grep and type inet. So here's your IP address. It's going to start with a 192.168, and mine is 229.140. Yours is probably going to be something unique, but it's probably going to start with a 192.168 or a 10 dot something. So now that we have that, it looks like Splunk is still up and running. Let's see our listening ports and make sure that Splunk is listening on the correct ports. So we'll do sudo socket statistics tulnp grep Splunk. All right, it's listening on port 8000 and port 8089. Awesome. That's what we want to see. Now we are going to go to our Ubuntu target machine. And we're going to test our ability to connect to our Ubuntu Splunk machine, which contains our Splunk server. So we're going to use a tool called Netcat, which is a really simple tool that essentially lets you talk to network ports directly. We're going to use Netcat by typing NC, and we're going to type Z, V. Z means zero IO mode. It just means essentially test the connection, don't send any data back and forth. And the V is for verbose mode, meaning tell me what is happening. Just be really chatty about it. Tell me exactly what's going on. And then we're going to type in the address, the IP address of our Splunk server, 229.140. And then we're going to hit one of those open ports, port 8000. Oh, it didn't like that. Didn't like that colon. All right, connection succeeded. Awesome, they can reach each other. Another quick, easy option is to just ping. And you can see that works as well. However, the Netcat test I just showed you is a way, way better test, 192.168. The Netcat test is way more specific. Okay, we downloaded and installed Splunk using wget, which is the pros way. We took care of the iowait error that was popping up, tuning it for our lab environment. We tuned Splunk down to lab environment settings as well instead of for an enterprise environment, quieting some of those internal logs. And we even confirmed the connection between our two Ubuntu machines. Overall, you've been pretty productive. In our next video, I'll show you how to get the appropriate security logs flowing from our Ubuntu target machine to our Ubuntu Splunk machine. But there's something special about the way we're going to do this. Remember how we use configuration files to tune down Splunk from those enterprise level configuration settings down to something that's more appropriate for our lab? We're also going to use configuration files, which is the way the pros do it, to set up our logging. We're not going to do it via command line. We're not going to do it via the GUI because those are the beginner's way of doing things. I'm going to teach you how to do it the professional's way. Then this will open up all sorts of doors to new levels of sophistication when you're administering a large stack of servers. Well, that's it for this video. Stay tuned for the next one where we're really going to start getting into the weeds of how real security logging is done. Thanks for hanging out with me.